From London to the whole world, this is Get Alive Podcast Kunai. I'm Tyson, as a returning guest for the time being. And as always, we have the wonderful and always succinct Bish. Love Mish. Hello, Bish.
Welcome to summer, guys. Tyson, I don't know if you remember that. I said every episode that you would be on, I would say welcome to summer, even if it isn't summer. But
it's actually the question is, will you have it ready before summer ends?
Probably not. This will probably go up in like 2021, like that. Me and my schedule. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, we've been a bit delayed at the moment, but yeah.
All right. With that said, I'm thankful that meme still follows me, and for our second guest, we have a very special person here on the show with us. We have Will, all the way from Japan. Hi, Will.
Hey, and get off my lawn.
Are you saying that because you're old?
Yes.
But I don't... Before we really get into the episode, do you guys really have lawns in Japan? I don't think you do.
Some homes do, but not where I'm at. It's all concrete and asphalt where I am.
So for you guys that don't know, Will has actually been a fan of this podcast for a while now. And, we became best of friends. And now he's on it. I asked him to come on the podcast because there was some scheduling issues. I also asked Tyson to come on as well. So I kind of expect maybe these guys to come in every once in a while. It's not going to happen all the time, but every once in a while. And we're going to test it out. And yeah, Tyson, what are we going to watch today? What are we going to discuss, today?
Today we are discussing Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, a show released by Cloverworks in 2018. But before we get into the discussion, do you have some words for our listeners, Bish?
I do, and the disclaimer. For you new folks, Get Live Podcast Kunai is a monthly anime discussion podcast under the Get Live group. Due to the nature of the discussion, we can't avoid spoiler of the show to be discussed. For the shows that are based off existing pieces of work, whether it's manga, light novel, or some other media form, we're not going to be covering the source material for those. We can be found on Spotify now, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. If you'd like to recommend for us a show to watch and make an episode of Kunai, send us your suggestion on our Twitter page at Get Live Podcast, or by leaving us a review on iTunes. If you'd like to support what we do on Kunai, remember to check out our sponsors, Japan Crate. Go to www.getalifepodcast.com/Japan Crate. Use the code GALP for $3 off. And if you want to watch this very anime, keep up to date with what we watch for on Kunai, you can support us by signing up for a 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium for everything anime. Keep it Crunchyroll, crunchyroll.com/Kunai. Tyson.
All right, so for Bunny Girl Senpai, which obviously kind of like saying the whole name out loud, where for simplicity's sake, we're just gonna be referring it to as Bunny Girl Senpai. So first, we have here that Bunny Girl Senpai. Like I said, a show released in 2018 by Studio Cloverworks, basically follows the story of a group of individuals throughout the show in which they experience something that's called on the show as puberty syndrome. Basically, situations that happen during adolescence that have a supernatural twist. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussion in regards to that, whether it works, whether it doesn't work, the characters in the story, like how does that work? So to begin, I would like to know, what is your experience with this show? Like, how do you heard about it and initial impressions? I want to start with Will for this one. Will?
Sure. Probably the first time I heard of it was actually on the Crunchyroll forums, posting about the announcement of it. Then, of course, I was like, oh, a bunny girl. This seems interesting right off the bat. But yeah, that's where I heard of it. And then when I, not going into the actual show yet, but when I actually watched it, I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah, it does pull that card in which it does sound like it's gonna be about a bunny girl. So, like at first, it is kind of it kind of is. I'm not gonna disagree with that assessment. And other than the fact that there's like 2 episodes only in which the titular character Mai is seen with a bunny girl outfit. So it's kind of a bait and switch, but I do have.
But in all honesty, I like that. I like how it definitely has an initial appeal to even pull in people who are fans of shows that are might be more ecchi in nature. But then most people I know that are like that did watch a show, they stuck around even for the story.
Right. Bish, any thoughts on how you found about the show?
In terms about how I found out in the show and first impressions, I believe this came out in the fall season. Literally.
I believe so.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of different other shows. I think there was Domestic Girlfriend, I think, was airing around that time as well. And I was watching that, and then I was disappointed with that show. And then I actually asked Will what's a good suggestion for the season. And then he was like, "Oh man, you should watch Bunny Senpai." And I was like, "Oh, cool, I'll watch it." I got hooked from the first episode. The only thing was, I dropped the show.
What?
I dropped the show. I dropped the show literally when they done the Tomoe episodes. Not even the Tomoe episodes. I think it was actually the... No, it was the Tomoe episodes. Then I stopped watching. And I kind of fell out of love with it from the beginning.
Do you recall
so I stopped watching it, and I kind of felt that the anime lost its charm after that, because it kind of felt like a Monster of the Week show. So I'd step back, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to watch the show anymore, and I dropped it. So this rewatch is actually my completion of the show.
So I want to ask you, Bish. So Will recommended the show to you before it was even brought up to Kunai in order to have that watch?
That's correct. So I was looking for anime to watch within that season. There was some shows that were okay and some shows that were kind of like fucked up, and I was just like, you know what, I was actually not going to watch any anime for that season. I asked Will, what would you recommend? And he said Bunny Senpai. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll give it a try. So I was watching it simulcasted originally. That's my first experience with it.
And you mentioned that you drop around the Tomoe episode. So according to my notes, we're talking...
I was watching it simulcasted. I liked the mysterious aspect of the show, and then kind of every episode left me waiting, wanting to know more. And you kind of feel like you got it figured out, and then it's like, oh, actually, you don't. And there's this new twist. And then the Tomoe episode, it kind of felt to me cheap. Her introduction felt...
It's interesting, not to get too deep into it now, but I actually enjoyed the whole Tomoe arc myself.
It's not necessarily the Tomoe arc. It was just the fact that the way it was introduced, and it sort of set a trend for the rest of the anime. Like, I felt that, oh, okay, the next arc is going to introduce another girl, and the other arc is going to introduce another girl. And
I gotcha.
And I was sort of, when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, okay, so I was right. So the reason why I dropped it, I was sort of affirmed in that when rewatching the show. And it just felt cheap to me. It just felt like this is Pokemon, but for like this awkward, puberty syndrome. I wanted to know more about puberty syndrome as opposed to these girls and their lives and their problems, etc. And to be honest with you, I felt like that during the simulcast. I didn't feel like that necessarily when rewatching, but during the simulcast, I did feel like that. I just felt like, why should I care about Tomoe? Why should I care about, the scientist girl? Why should I care about any of these characters? Like, it just feels cheap. So that's how I
do
felt.
understand.
That's why I dropped the show.
So this was my second time watching the show. I watched it when it aired, and then I rewatched it again, for this podcast. And thinking back what you say, yeah, it's definitely gave me even a different impression, basically binge watching it versus when I watch it week to week. So I can kind of see where that sentiment and that feeling's coming from.
And part of it, I do prefer, like, obviously there's no way you can watch it simulcasted again, right? It's impossible to watch it simulcasted again, but it is a better show to binge as opposed to simulcast, right? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I can concede to that. I don't think it took anything away watching it simulcast, but yeah, it's definitely a really good show to binge, especially if you watch it in just each arc. Each arc is like 2 to 4 episodes basically.
Tyson?
Personally, I didn't watch it simulcast. I found out about this show much later. So one of the things that happened is that I started to have less and less time for anime, so whatever show recommendation I got it from Twitter. I may have heard something about Bunny Girl Senpai back when it was being simulcasted, but by the time, the one thing that caught my attention, because originally I saw the premise and I didn't thought that this would be a show for me, so originally I ignored it, but then I started to see the takes on Twitter, possibly some YouTube stuff as well, indicating that this show has Monogatari vibes. So that was like, that got my attention. So I started watching the show, and at first I was upset. Probably upset is not the best way to describe my feelings, but rather, I guess it's disappointment rather, because that the show would be titled the way that it was, because probably the reason because when I think of Bunny Girls, I think of Haruhi Suzumiya, and I don't like Haruhi at all. Bunny Girls is not something that like I as a viewer am attracted to, so I just
It's
at
blue hair with
first
guns. I think that's what you're attracted to, Tyson. We know it already.
no comment. So at first I decided I wasn't gonna pick up the show, but it was that mere mention that it gave Monogatari vibes. So this is the part in which, okay, you got my attention. So I started watching it, and while there were things about it that I didn't quite get, and to be honest, in the rewatch, it wasn't made any better at all.
I agree with
but
you.
I remembered why I fell in love with this show in the first place. And before rewatching, I was looking over my list and just reviewing. Okay, so sometimes on rewatches, what I'll do is that I'll revise the rating of the shows. I remember giving this an 8 originally, and knowing myself in regards to how I rate shows, the fact that it got an 8, I started to question that. Probably it was my intention to give it a 7.5, but then I would have to either just bring it down to a 7 since Mal doesn't do half points, or just bring it up to an 8. And I remember that precisely the reason why I gave it an 8, it was due to the fact that I love this character so much, and this would be my second time watching the show. And like I said, even on the rewatch, there are some things about the story that didn't make sense to me. And I'll just go ahead and use this as a segue to talk about the story of the show. I'll start with Bish and then we'll go to Will. But if there is moments during the discussion that you would like to butt in, then we'll have a conversation.
Since you actually suggested it, Tyson, I've watched this anime 4 times, okay? And each time it kind of confuses me even more, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What is this story? What is it about? It feels very segmented. Like at first I'm thinking, oh cool, it's about this whole puberty syndrome, and I really want to know what's going on with that. And then it's like, okay, actually it's about this character and her struggles, and it's about Futaba and her inner struggles, and it's about this character, and it's about Kaede, and it's like, there's so much going on. It doesn't feel right to me. Like, I want it to be a particular thing. At once I was like, okay, I want this anime to be a drama. I want this to be a romance. I want this to be supernatural. I want this to be this, and this. But I feel that it needs to be pinpoint a little bit.
Sorry, it definitely does not have a 100% defined identity. That's for sure.
I get it. And like, I agree. Like, I know not all anime has that identity in that sense. You can have multiple genres, etc. But for me, it felt disappointing because I felt like I didn't necessarily get the answers that I wanted from the story, and I didn't feel necessarily satisfied with it as well. Like every time I would rewatch it, I just feel like it's bringing up more questions, and I'm like, this anime is not answering any of my questions. I'm not sure if you guys felt like that as well. One thing
totally. Like I would say, I was thinking that there is some stuff that just felt unresolved.
One thing that I do want to mention, and I'm just going to give it props for this, and I'm going to include it in the story segment, is the way that the show is paced. It's at the same time it's paced really well, but at the same time it isn't. And I didn't notice this until my, I think, second or third rewatch, that the show is taking place over a year, 2 years. Am I correct in saying that, guys?
I don't think it's a full 2 years.
Because Sakuta does say, he was like, oh, and she forgot what happened over the 2 years. And I was like, the fuck? Like, 2 years has passed? Like,
well, they're talking about what happened to I think starting technically with the whole Katie thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like 6 months after her whole episode is where the story starts.
Okay, so let's say it's a year and a half basically. But even then, it's like it felt like to me like this story was going off a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, and being told that it's happening over a year and a half. It's like, the fuck? What have I been missing? Like, the show, actually, when I'm watching it, it feels like a film. Like, every episode just feels long. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, is this a K-drama? Is this like a K-drama or J-drama where every episode is an hour long? And it's like, oh, I'm only like 10 minutes in, but I feel like I'm investing so much of my time to this anime. And I like that. Don't get me wrong.
It's also very dialogue heavy. It
is very dialogue. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, so this show has a good thing in the sense that it makes me feel that the show is actually much longer, but they're not doing much with it. Because I didn't feel that there is a year and a half worth of story going on. Do you see what I mean? Like everything just seems like it's on a whim. Like everything just seems to just happen. Do you see what I mean? Like there's certain bits and bobs I don't necessarily understand with the show. Like, for example, Mai having a sister. Like, okay, cool, she has a sister. It just came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. Now I see what you're saying.
Or even the whole Kaede thing. Like, she has no memories. I was like, what the fuck? Like, you're bringing me this at the end of the show, like 3 episodes. Like, you could have brought this in like halfway through and we could have actually explored this. You had the opportunity to, but no, we get stupid Tomoe arcs, and we get.
So it's like a lack of congruity, basically.
Like for me, I don't know if you guys have seen Charlotte or not, but we did cover it on Kunai. I don't know, like in the ending of Charlotte, spoilers, guys. In the ending of Charlotte, they introduce like this whole sort of plot point, this story arc, like what happens at the end and him going around the world and all this shit, and it happens in one episode. This whole Kaede losing her memories felt like that. It was just like it sprang up on us, and I was like, really? Is this how you're gonna resolve this anime?
You know, I obviously have not read the source material, but I think that's also kind of the point, is that you're always wondering through the initial part of the show what exactly is going on with Kaede, why, she acts the way that she does and everything, and then like you said, they spring on us like, oh, this is why. It's like she doesn't even realize who she is. You know, you find out it's a different personality, basically.
It doesn't seem like a good answer, because at one point, there was no point in this anime that I was questioning, why is she acting like this? Why is she using the third person?
Yeah.
There's no, there was no question behind it. I was questioning more so, why was she just randomly coming home with cuts on herself? Like, that was what I was interested in. We didn't even get an answer to that.
Well, that was flashback stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I know that's flashback stuff, but at the same time, it's like, how come we didn't get answers to that, but we somehow got an answer to why is she using the third person, and why is she acting like this, and why does she like fucking pandas? Like, I don't need that information. That's just my 2 cents.
I feel that with Kaede, you always knew as the viewer that there was something wrong with her, because you just don't put in character who's a total need in the story and not hope that won't be used later. So whether it was Kaede losing her memories, but I believe it was in episode 1 in which there was a slight mention as to what was the situation happening with the Azusagawas. And right. Probably in pacing, leaving it until the end wasn't the best decision.
No, it wasn't.
That it could have
Yeah,
been
there was a huge
made.
gap between info.
It felt as if we had amnesia. That's what it felt like to me. It was like we were Kaede in that sense.
I think Kaede too, being like that on-set kind of character too, was kind of like the comfort character that almost anyone was like, oh, who's this cute girl
She's
and
the
everything.
Emoto.
And
Like,
kind of like,
to me, like
right.
looking at
that's
her, I
what
was
she
like,
is.
that's the Emoto character. Like I wasn't like you, Tyson. I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's just, the hikikomori, and then there must be something going on with her. I didn't think that. I was just like, oh, she's the Emoto. Okay, cool. Moving on. Like, that's how I felt. I didn't really look into it that much.
Other than Mai, she was the character that pretty much kept, Sakuta, grounded, more or less.
That's true, yeah, of course. But that was because of her dependence on him, more than anything, I would say.
So the story about the Azusagawa, so Sakuta, Kaede, the relationship that Sakuta has with Mai, and to a certain extent, I would say Futaba as well, or underlying tones that went throughout the story. And at least myself, I wouldn't be so harsh on the fact that Kaede's story just came out of nowhere, because if you're really paying attention, I feel that you'd know that something revolving the Azusagawas would be coming.
No, I get it.
Probably it wasn't the
when you mention
best
it like
position
that,
chosen.
I do understand that they made it perfectly clear, but the way that it happened just felt very cheap. Once again, cheap is a word I'm going to use a lot, but it did feel like that. The anime was trying to hint at it a lot, but I mean at the same time...
Well, yeah, I was getting ready to say that's why they kept, bringing up the whole thing with, the quote-unquote incident and, the scars on the chest and other people always looking at Sakuta funny. And, yeah, there was little things that kept it connected up until that point, but it wasn't completely obvious either.
And that's it. Another thing I want to quickly mention is... Did you guys notice every time they were like saying cookie? I was like, what do they mean by that? And literally the word means air. Like, it's like they're talking about the atmosphere, right? But have you noticed that they say that a lot? Like, I really wanted to play a drinking game, but I feel like every time I hear the word cookie, I'll probably die. I'll fucking die of alcohol poisoning, if that was the case. But did you guys notice that? Like, I found that annoying.
I found it annoying as well. I'm not gonna disagree with that. Because mostly it doesn't make sense. I thought it was a failure on the localization, but when it's placed like this, it just doesn't make sense. Like ambience, atmosphere. What the hell does that mean?
It doesn't. It's just bullshit. Like, to me, it kind of, it's like filler bullshit. Like, that's what it is. It's like Naruto filler. That's what it felt like. I was like, come on, I don't want to hear about this kooky thing. Like, stop. Because I hear it all the time in anime, but they use it in such a different way here. Like, it's always talking about the atmosphere. Like, in other anime, it's like, oh, they're talking about the actual air, like the actual air you're fucking breathing. But here, it's like, the atmosphere is funny, and this is going on. But I was like, okay, cool, tell me about it. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't want to get to the point, Sakuta.
Yeah, it did feel like that. I'll admit that it also annoyed me as well. Mostly because it didn't make sense.
No, it didn't.
Well, I'll say it's also not a word that I hear a lot coming up, and I work with teenagers, and yeah, I never hear that word.
I thought your students are like all moody and shit, and they talk about the atmosphere a lot.
No, my kids are crazy.
Yeah, talking about the atmosphere, kooky.
I guess I want to know now, since I'm reminded that Will is a teacher. Anything about Bunny Girl Senpai that you saw that you could probably see your students engaging on?
Oh, that's a very interesting question.
So like, I work in a junior high school, so it's not a high school setting, but that being said, there's just like in American high, schools, there's definitely cliques. There's definitely, kids that are outcast. There's, definitely the whole awkward romance. Like, there's a boy that I just adore. He's hilarious. He's super charming and everything, but he's so awkward with girls that like he doesn't know how to actually talk to him or ask him out, and he's just completely blunt about it, which kind of reminds me of Sakuta. And he will like just walk up to a girl and be like, "Hey, date."
I wish I had that confidence. I wish I had that confidence. You're talking about like a 12-year-old boy? I wish I had that confidence.
No, he's 15. He's
Okay.
in class 3, but he's hilarious, and it's funny because like his English is decent for his age, and he'll talk to me, and he goes, "Oh, Will Sensei, I want the girlfriend. I want the girlfriend." I was like, "Me too, buddy. Me too."
My man. My man. That boy is my spirit animal. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
I hope
thought
he
it-
gets a girlfriend. I really do. I really
I do
do.
too. Like, I've been cheering for him. Like, every time I see him talking to a girl, I'm like, "Oh, is this the moment? Is this when it's gonna happen?"
Come on. This is gonna happen. Come on. I'm cheering for you, buddy. You go. You go for it.
That's what's going on in my mind. You know those have you ever seen Spanish people commentating on football?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that. That's what I'm hoping to happen. I really want that to happen. I want there to be like Spanish commentators. Goal! When he gets
I
the goal.
can imagine Will just looking at one of his proteges and going, "Gambate."
Oh, I do. I tell them that all the time. Or I'll give them, or if they see me, I won't like say anything to them. But like, there's a big thing here. Like, if you like hold your hand up like in a fist, it means like fight doll. So I'll like give them that symbol.
You're such a weeb, man. You're such a weeb.
Oh, dude, like
I appreciate
I
it.
live
though.
that life.
I live that weeb life.
Will has reached nirvana. He lives in Weebland.
I know, man. Well, you know what? I wish I was there.
Let's put it this way: I'm within walking distance of an onsen.
Well, stop it. Okay.
Yeah, you're making Bish get yellows right now. But I want to get back to this story.
Right.
Will, any thoughts or any points that have been brought up by Bish that you would like to discuss?
Oh man, I've got lots of notes here. I don't know. I might retread some stuff, but I'll just give you kind of like a bullet point here. What I mean. So,
Okay.
to me, like kind of going back to the first impressions, just judging by the first episode alone. As you were kind of talking about Monogatari, I kind of was like, man, I said this reminds me of Monogatari from the dialogue and then the kind of odd supernatural bit mixed with some snafu. Just with the setting, character designs, things of that nature.
Yeah, that's
and then obviously, technically, the main characters are Sakuta and Mai, but but I feel like it was mostly Sakuta's show, obviously, since he's kind of like the character you follow through the entire thing.
Yeah.
But basically, to me, just an overall general view is that it's about Sakuta, this teenage high school boy who is helping to deal with the pains of adolescence and puberty and growing up and getting older, and he's helping others heal their inner pains while this strange phenomena is happening. But in a sense, they're kind of helping him, and I just like how he's totally blunt about everything and honest about everything. And I think that that's also what ends up helping these other characters. And not to go too deep into any spoilers yet, but it's weird how he ends up kind of being the one that's the most hurt by everything because he takes so much onto himself.
So what you're saying is that Sakuta is basically Araragi.
Yeah, that's
I'm not even going to disagree with that statement.
No,
This
that's
is
a
not particularly hot
really
take
good
or-
comparison, Like I said, even though I said, yeah, it reminds me of Monogatari, but I never really put the two and two together of how much he is like Araragi. Yeah, I don't know. I really like Sakuta a lot. I obviously don't think that this story is as fleshed out as something like Monogatari, but yeah, that's a really good comparison there. It's kind of strange how, when Bish was talking about the whole monster of the week, and this was kind of like a girl of the week kind of a thing, and there were other male characters involved too, but not as much. and you know, like I said, how he just ends up helping all these different girls, and every time something happens, they come to him. Except with, you know, the case with Futaba, how, you know, he was the one that outreached to her. He would go to her for help and ask for her advice, you know, her being into physics and science and quantum theories and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of weird how they kept putting that scientific spin on these supernatural things that were happening.
That was intriguing to me, because I was like, it made it feel real. Do you see what I mean? Like the whole Laplace demon and the, you know, Schrodinger's cat, all of that sort of stuff. I was like,
right.
Okay, cool. There is some explanation to this.
He would go talk to her, and like you said, that's a really good term. Like, she kind of kept everything kind of grounded more in reality, and everything that they talked about, it was like as matter of fact. You know what I mean? She never, you know, thought, oh, he's crazy or anything. She would actually try to put logical spins on the things he was telling her.
And I appreciate that, because it makes us understand this phenomenon more, and that was intriguing. And then when they stopped doing that, I was like, oh, okay. Cool.
Since we are at the area in which we're discussing like the whole physics thing about it, I'm just gonna go ahead and say what my overall thought in that spin of the story was. And I'm not sure if this is a hot take incoming or something, but I don't think that Bunny Girl Senpai did the whole supernatural aspect well. So when you try to quote ground what's happening with these teenagers and just put them forward as some sort of puberty syndrome, quote unquote, you're essentially using that to explain things that happen to teenagers. So I don't think that the use of the supernatural here...
Anyone who watches this show will kind of know everything is done metaphorically. It's pure metaphors.
I guess my issue is with the focus on it, because I'll tell you right now, whenever Sakuta was with Futaba to explain physics concepts, and some of the ones were really easy, like for instance the Schrodinger's cat. So even though I'm not knowledgeable on physics, I have heard of Schrodinger's cat.
From Big Bang Theory, yeah, we all have, Tyson.
Of course, but then as the story gets more complex, I feel that just throwing theories out there to kind of say, oh, it's science, this is mysterious.
Let me ask you that. Do you feel that kind of means that the story was, or the author might have been trying to make things seem more smart than what they actually were? You think that might be why?
Yes. I do think that, because if you're trying to tell me a story based on the fact that, okay, I just want to focus on this misanthropic guy that just goes around trying to help people and in a way help himself, then I can accept that, but at least have the decency to say it, to just focus on that instead of trying to sound smart about the whole thing. So
yeah, to go along with that, it's like you know, even though we haven't gotten to gripes and grumbles yet, that's one of the notes that I made, is that sometimes that just the dialogue and the language that they use kind of felt forced, like it was trying to make itself seem smart.
I don't think that the show succeeded in the supernatural aspect, and like I mentioned,
what do you think it succeeded in? If not the supernatural, like what? Because, you know, we're talking about a lot of the negatives, but what do you think it did well? In
terms of the story, definitely the part in which, so I guess my expectation when it comes to this was more, okay, so I want to be told a story about. So at first it was, so Mai isn't being visible. So that's when kind of the supernatural aspect was at least believable to me. But then as it dragged on, so we got into Koga, we got into Futaba, we got into what's the name of my sister? Nodoka. So at that point, the supernatural aspect of it was like it fell flat. So
yeah, I you know, and that's what I was gonna say too. The whole Nodoka part, that was the part that really fell flat. I mean, for lack of better words, you know, or to steal someone else's words, like how Bish was talking about the whole Tomoe part. That's how I felt with the Nodoka part because of the payoff at the end. The payoff at the end to me, I was just like, wait, what just happened? That was just awkward.
It was very awkward. Like she was like screaming and shit, and then the bit when she tried to kill herself, I was like, really? Like, really? I get it. It was trying to be emotional, but I genuinely didn't understand what's going through her mind at that point.
To go along with the whole, you know, it kind of trying to seem smarter than it was at the time, even just the whole thing with their bodies switching back. It was like, wait, so their bodies swapped, not their minds? It was like, how does that work? That just seemed really weird to me, that it wasn't a mind switching thing, it was a body switching thing. It's like, isn't that really the same thing? Why did they do it like that?
I think it's just trying to be unique. But once again, it raises more questions than it, you know, answers. Like,
yes.
It's like, okay, so what happens in this situation? Do the bones actually change? Like, do they feel
right.
pain? Like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Like, what goes on? Like, I would imagine crunching to happen. Like, I would imagine hearing like actually it would.
Because
I would imagine being
they're not
very
the same
disgusting
height
to watch that.
They're
but
not
it was
the
like,
same
oh,
body
magic.
type.
And it makes it leads on to another point. Like, I don't know if this is gonna lead into characters or anything like that, but it made me think: is Sakuta, like, does he have an issue? Like, is he mentally ill? Like, that's something that I wanted to know. Is this from his perspective and he's just trying to deal with an illness of his, and this is all in his mind? Like, this is what made me want to think, like, what is this show about?
It's a possibility, and yeah, let's go ahead and go straight into characters to expand this discussion. So. Let's talk about Sakuta. What you like, what you didn't like. If anything about him ties a story, you can go ahead and get that.
So Sakuta,
done.
I kind of relate to him somewhat. Once again, he has so much confidence, and I like that. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't really say it's confidence, as in he just doesn't care.
Well, I think it's, yeah, maybe he doesn't care, but I feel like for him to say shit like that, I'm like, shit, man. I wouldn't say shit like that. Like. And props to Mai, because, you know, she plays on it well. I'm not gonna lie. Like, she teases the shit out of him.
Well, and not just Mai, but like even during the whole body swapping part, how he even talks sexually about Mai's body when it's really Nodoka in there.
Oh my god, it's insane. Like, when it was that bit when he was taking off the tights and he was like, oh man, it's so attractive when a girl takes off her tights. I'm like, the fuck? Like, I get it, but at the same time, the stuff that this guy comes up with is kind of like the kind of total bro. So not bro, but I mean, like, he's such a Chad. Do you know what I mean?
Chad.
He's just like the Chad guy, but at the same time, he's more than that. He's very caring. He has love for his family. He's willing to sacrifice, you know, his life and his reputation, etc. And, you know, even his social life. Like, he threw his phone into the sea. Like, a lot of us now, we have to rely on our mobile phones. Like, we talk to each other through our phones. We, you know, experience each other through social media. Like, even this podcast now, we've never met, but, you know, we're interacting with each other because of that. And he's left that all behind, and he's focusing on his family. And I really do appreciate that. And I think that's what makes him really nice as a character to me.
I think all that goes back to kind of like how you're saying is like, is this happening in his mind? Is there something wrong with him? Because of, like, he's basically he's grief stricken, you know, and that's why he's just so why everyone, you know, keeps mentioning to the show, he's like, you always have this dead look in your eyes, you know, you're so unemotional, and everything that he does and he says, it's so deadpan. Like, there's never really that much emotion behind him other than when he's upset, crying, things like that. Like, like even things that happen to other people that make them upset, it doesn't faze him, and it's just because he kind of is dead, you know, inside a bit because of the things that happened, you know, with his sister and what led up to that point and led up
and
to
I
him.
agree with you, but and at the same time, I don't want to go into conspiracy, but I do want to bring it up. It does make me think that it's all going on in his head because, first of all, how is it that your girlfriend happens to be like the most popular actress, you know, and goes to your school, and she's the sexy senpai, and do you see what I mean? Like, all of this doesn't add up.
I think in a way Mai admires the assertiveness of Sakuta, but we can get into Mai later.
I think that you're right there. You know, once again, we'll get into Mai in a bit, but it's because so many people basically babied her whole life, and he's not like that.
But what I'm trying to say is, does she truly exist? Do any of these characters truly exist, other than Kaede?
This is getting so like,
yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps right now.
So you could go on and on with each of these characters, especially Shoko. Like, you know, that's a whole other thing.
No,
that's
don't
what I
even
want to talk about.
Don't even get me started on
can.
Shoko, because
okay,
that's scary.
Are we gonna do this in order? Are we gonna keep going off on this tangent? Or are we gonna move on to another character?
I do want to share something about Sakuta that, in a way, it troubled me, because this is where a reading of his character can say that, in a way, he's suicidal. So this is during the Futaba arc. So when he was speaking to Futaba at the hospital, he said to her, now I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the exact quote, "It's okay if you hate yourself. I guess that's the way the cookie crumbles. And living positively is so exhausting." So this leads me to think that, is Sakuta depressed, or
I think he is,
potential candidate for?
He's 100% depressed.
And one thing I want to mention is that even when he found out that the sister lost the memories, and he goes out into the rain and he's screaming and he's running like one of the Titans, you know, one of the Titans from Attack on Titan, like he's running and his arms are just like flailing about. And I'm like,
yeah.
The way that they draw him in that scene, I'm like, shit, this guy genuinely does have issues. He does have stuff that he's trying to overcome. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, when you say he's depressed, I do agree with you. He is probably clinically depressed.
It's the depression, it's the grief, and it's also, like, I think he's realizing too of being a little bit selfish because of the fact that he loved Katie's personality as it was. Like, you can kind of tell he didn't want her to go back to the way that she was before. So
well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want that as well. Because when you see the way that she is before, she just seems like a total... No, I don't want to say a total bitch, but I mean like a sort of typical high school girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my god, like that's what she felt like. She felt like a valley girl to me. And nothing wrong with being a valley girl, but I mean, she just felt like that. And I prefer the Imoto Kaede because it's like...
Yeah, everyone's gonna prefer the Imoto character, but the thing is that wasn't her true self. And I think, you know, by the end of that whole thing, he comes to even realize, okay, it's still my sister. I still love her. He's like, this is her.
But I mean, he spent 2 years with, you know, basically building a relationship from scratch and seeing that wash away. And not just building that relationship, it's also overcoming those goals. Because, you know, when she said, oh, I've done that whole book of goals so that we can overcome them together. Do you see what I mean? So that he's filled with positive memories because she knew that she was going to overcome them and leave eventually. Do you see what I mean? So...
Oh, absolutely.
At the same time, it's also... He's not just losing the relationship that he had with her. He's losing the Mai relationship. Do you see what I mean? That Mai had with Kaede. He's losing all of these other relationships. So, you know, that's unfortunate to him. He's losing basically 2 years of his life. So it's like...
So this is one of the things in which paying close attention to what happens in the story would greatly help. So this is when you know that Sakuta, in one of the mid-rolls of the episodes that came prior, so he wanted Kaede to come out of the house to stop being a hikikomori, but I guess that the way that it was communicated, it was like, I wanted you to get out of it, but not like this, not like this.
Well, that's what I was just saying. The way that they kind of treated her transition back to her real personality in a way that especially Sakuta reacted, but kind of some other characters kind of did too. It was almost as if it was like grieving over a death almost.
Because in a way it was. Do you see what I mean? Because that Kaede doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that version of Katie no longer exists in the world.
If he no longer existed, press F to pay respect.
F.
Let's talk about Mai. What did you guys think of Mai?
Mamma mia. No, okay. What got me into it was when I saw the bunny suit, I was like, okay, cool. That's a gimmick. I get it. The feet. Not gonna lie. The feet. Boys. No, I'm joking. Okay. No, seriously, I just like how she's such a cock tease. I just enjoy that. I love characters, whether they're male or female. They just love to fucking tease. And I enjoy that about her. She's serious, don't get me wrong. Like, she seems like a very caring girlfriend. And she actually cares for Sakuta. And she cares for Kaede. And she cares for every other stupid person that comes into this anime. You see what I mean? Like, she actually cares. She gives a shit.
My thing with Mai is that not only was she the initial, focal point for Sakuta that kind of got him into this whole world, but in my opinion, she's kind of the glue that holds the whole cast together because she's so involved with everybody outside of Sakuta.
That's it. And if it wasn't for her, obviously you wouldn't have introductions of certain characters. For example, the sister. Yeah, but even then, like, she's such the banter that she has, and she plays on it. Like, Sakuta will be like, oh, would you want to take a bath with me? Like, the stupid shit like that. Do you see what I mean? And she's like, no peeking. And like the way that she gets that he's a pervert, and she plays on it. And she plays on it really well, and she punishes him, and he loves it. And I'm like, that's amazing.
Part of that with her is that she respects honesty more than anything else.
And that's true.
And she wouldn't want anyone to sugarcoat things with her.
Of course.
Because people have done that for her whole life.
I suppose her being in show business did show that there's a lot of fake people in the industry. So it kind of plays into her character as well as to her liking honesty more than anything. So I definitely agree with that.
Well, and it's like she has difficulties being honest with herself. Like when they did the whole story arc with talking about how her mother was having her like pose in the bikini and doing sexy shoots when she was still just a girl basically, but she puts on the fake smile and does it because it's her job.
That was very hard for me to watch that. Honest to God, because it's like
you could tell it hurt her. I mean, that was like a deep cut to her.
No, of course it was a deep cut to me, and I wasn't even the one posing. Like, do you know what I mean? It that got me. I was like, shit, man. So that's when I kind of felt like she's not 2D. Do you know what I mean? Like, she actually felt like,
absolutely.
Like a human.
And I think this is why she and Sakuta were so good together, going into like the kind of romance part of the story here, is the fact that she could tell that he legit loved her. Like, it wasn't just because of her body or anything. He loved her for a person, where all these other people have said, oh, you're great, we love you and all this stuff, but it wasn't ever real love, whereas his is.
To me, they're so broken that they need each other to work, both of them. And I like that.
They lift each other up for sure.
Yeah.
I think the fact in which they started to know each other came later, because obviously, like many human relationships, you first get attracted by there are people that get attracted by knowing a person, and then there's people that get attracted from the physical, and then it turns out that they are also attracted by the emotional as well. So even playing to Sakuta's perviness,
I don't necessarily, and I want to stop you right there. I don't necessarily think it's the perviness that initially attracted him. I think it was just the fact that he was shocked. Do you see what I mean? Like, it was the mystery behind her that was like, oh shit, I really want to know more about it. Like, you see a girl in a bunny suit and no one else can see it, you're like, what the fuck is going on? I really want to know what's going on.
Especially in the middle of a library.
And that's very evident when he goes and he asks about this girl the next day to his friend. And then he's asking her...
No, but I do want to I do want to kind of touch on what Tyson said though about how, you know, the real love and part of the relationship didn't come later, and I kind of agree with that. Like in my notes I put, like, in my opinion, I think it really started to happen around episode 7 where they had the sleepover and they were sleeping together in the living room with him on the floor. And like she was joking with him about, you know, how they could have practiced as much kissing as he wanted, but he missed his chance, kind of a thing. So it was kind of like, you know, she wants to do it, but she's still kind of teasing him and, you know, for lack of better words, dragging him along, but not in that bad way. She's kind of like just dangling that.
But do you think she's doing that because she knows that he's not going to do it?
No, because I mean, if she didn't actually stop him, he would do it. I mean, how many times would he try to lean in to kiss her, and she'd put her, you know, her hand on her face and everything like that. I mean, on his face.
Right. Yeah, in which, and I'm sorry to have to piggyback from this because Will pretty much made my whole point in regards to Sakuta was attractive first because at first Sakuta was trying to solve a mystery. Hey, have you heard of who Mai Sakurajima is? So this is not something that he did because he's in love with Mai, something that he was just trying to solve a mystery. So when the playfulness between the two started, that's when it started to sink in that Sakuta was in love with, or rather had an attraction to Mai. And then it was not until much later in which, okay, these two are in love with each other.
Was it the first episode where after seeing Mai in the library, then they were walking to school and he was asking his friends about her, and like she was walking like a little bit up ahead of them, and it was and then that's when they said, it was like, you know, oh, that's, you know, Mai the actress, etc., and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I do recognize her. Like he had his first initial time seeing her, he didn't really recognize her, but then it clicked at that point.
Right. Especially in episode 2, in Sakuta's attempt to quote date Mai, she clearly stated that this is not a date.
No, that's because she's tsundere, man. That was a fucking date.
I'm gonna disagree with
she's
that.
She's being tsundere, dude. That's just her. That's you know she realizes.
I'll tell you when Mai was being a tsundere. It was so this is when we go to Koga's arc, in which it's just time repeating over and over, in which I believe Mai initially gives Sakuta a piece of fish, was it? To kiss?
Oh yeah. Oh, it was an egg.
Oh, that's right. It was an egg. You're right.
So this is when she is acting like a total tsundere. But yeah,
Really?
At least to me, that was
tsundere. Like I don't really see that. I think that's just her being a cock tease. Like that's what she is. That's not being a cock tease and being a tsundere. I definitely think it was more of a tease. A tsundere is like, oh, I didn't. It's not like I liked you or anything. That's
like the line between the both is blurry, but this is when I will say
though that as being in that tsundere camp kind of thing, she's definitely on the more mild side of it.
Yeah,
hers is definitely more teasing and more like, you know, kind of like try to keep the attention.
Truly enjoyed seeing the relationship between these two develop, and the fact that that Sakuta Mai, like in my mind, is just Araragi and Senyogahara. So like Senyogahara knows that Araragi is a total pervert, so playing up on each other. So this is when I agreed with the thoughts that I saw on Twitter saying, oh, this has the dialogue of Monogatari. So at that point, I want to go back to a critique that Bish said earlier about this looking like that girl of the week, like and putting that in a negative light. This is when for someone that is not aware, this is when you would say, oh, you haven't seen Monogatari, because like the dialogue, dude, the dialogue.
Well, I haven't seen Monogatari. I'm only saying it from my experience, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is, and that's how I felt.
Of course.
I really want to get into, because I know this is going to take a lot of time, I want to get into Shoko. I really want to get into her character, and I really want to kind of discuss, because I'm very confused about her existence and the role that she plays. Both the young Shoko and obviously the one that Sakuta can see. So I never, even in the flashbacks, this is what makes me think, and I really want to get into this. This is what makes me think that he's just seeing things. Like even the letter, you know, the letter saying, "Oh, I left" or whatever.
Well, not just the letter, but what about like also the phone calls?
That letter to me, I was waiting for it to be revealed that, oh, that's Sakuta wrote that. Like I was thinking that Sakuta like wrote it himself. Do you see what I mean? That he has some sort of multiple personalities or something like that. I can't remember which anime it was that did something like that, but I was thinking that was happening. But obviously it's not revealed, and I'm like, who is she? Who is she, Big Brother? Like,
I don't think it's a multiple personality thing, but I do think there's a potential where it's something like kind of like, you know, how Katie had her mind fractured. I think it's a similar thing potentially with Sakuta, where he just doesn't remember things right, or things just kind of appear to him at one moment and then not the next.
Like, I get it. He let her in and whatever, but I mean, how did she know everything about it? And how did she instantly just pick up the diary and knew what to read from? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
no, absolutely. That's why I was saying, it goes back to how I was saying how, you know, to go along with the kind of complaints or gripes with the show is how there's a lot that just goes unexplained and unresolved.
Yeah. I wanted to know why Bish hated Koga so much, but he wanted to speak about Shoko, so I'm just gonna let him.
Should I really talk about Tomoe?
No, go ahead, and you know, you're on the Shoko thing now, so I say keep going with that. I don't have a lot to say about Shoko.
So with the Shoko thing, I was just so confused. I was like, why? Where is she from? Like, even the young Shoko, I was like, why bring her in? Why, what's her involvement in all of this? And the fact that he tried calling up again, and even she's not answering the phone. Does the young Shoko have something to do with this? Do you see what I mean? Is there some sort of time loop that's involved in it? It might be a time loop. I don't know. Maybe she's a time traveler. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but we only get into this whole conspiracy theories about anime because there's not enough to go off.
Says that he doesn't want to get into conspiracy theories, and he has shared 2 so far during the show.
Well, but that's because I don't know what to think, Tyson. Because there isn't enough to go off from. This anime doesn't make it clear. It doesn't answer the questions, especially regarding Shoko. Like, I don't know, man.
In my personal opinion, the whole Shoko story that's going on, it's kind of the weakest part of the show.
It is the weakest part, but it's there to serve a purpose. Like, if it wasn't there, we wouldn't really get to the ending. It's necessary. It's weak, but it's necessary to move on. We can't move on without that. One thing that I do want to move on to, and can I please go on to Tomoe?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Tomoe, for me, I'm not gonna lie, I don't hate Tomoe. Okay? Tomoe, for me, is like the cutest character in this whole show. Even her introduction was just so fucking hilarious. Like, the way she drop kicks him and she's like, "Oh, you're a pedophile," and she's just like fucking drop kicks him, and I was like, shit. And then she gets her ass kicked. Well, she kicks his ass and then he kicks her ass, and I was like, shit, man, I would love for my ass to be kicked by Tomoe like all day long. I guess I'm a masochist.
So have we confirmed that Bish is a masochist?
I am a masochist, guys. I have a foot fetish. I'm a masochist. I like kinky shit. But no, seriously, I find that as a character, her introduction was solid. Just her story was a bit shit. Do you see what I mean? Like, I'm talking about her initial introduction, right? You know, just the fucking drop kick. Just It brings tears to my eyes just remembering it. But the whole issue with her, you know, going back and like this whole time loop shit was interesting. But I mean, all because, you know, she doesn't want to go out with this guy because of her friend, and she feels like she's going to lose her friends and whatnot. And yet, I don't think she truly learned anything. I'm not sure if you guys agree or not, but I don't think she truly learned from the situation, did she? Because she's still friends with them, and she's still on her phone all the time, like, oh, Rin and whatever her name is. Like, she's really still obsessed with it. And I thought that she would come out learning from it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, or am I just chatting shit?
If anything, I'll come out ahead and say it. Tomoe is the character I hate the most from this cast, and I'll explain why. Mostly because she puts so much weight on the opinion of her friend.
But to be honest with you, that is somewhat of a real stereotype, I guess, especially in high school. That's a lot of us, even me, when I was a student in high school, I would care so much about what friends would say. And like, you know, she's obsessed, like making friends and like taking pictures and always on the phone. Like for me, it was like, I bought an Xbox and I played Call of Duty because my friends were playing it. I was a kid that would play like JRPGs and shit, but because I wanted to be cool, I played an Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of get where she's coming from. And I don't really would put that against her.
It's like how she had to make sure to like stay up late at night to watch certain things on TV and jump into the conversation. Like she'd even be out on these dates or whatever with Sakuta, but still had to make sure that she was basically checking in with her friends and things like that because she was afraid of being left behind. She was so worried about being liked.
That's an interesting thing. As obviously a teacher, I'm presuming you see that on a daily basis, right? Somewhat.
See what exactly?
Like these cliques and just kids, like not necessarily being bullied, but I mean like in the fear of that, like having to survive. Like they like, it's kind of like survival of the fittest. They have to form these groups to survive, otherwise you're going to end up like guiding.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say at least I'm really lucky with, you know, where I work and everything like that. There's really not like, you know, bullying and things like that, but there are definite cliques and there are definite like outcast kids that kind of, you know, keep to themselves. So, you know, I do see it as a touch.
I guess my frustration with Tomoe stems more from the fact that in order for me to relate to a character, I have to put myself in with my own life experiences in her position. And I'm not disregarding that when I was a kid I didn't sought acceptance, but as an adult I'm all, why are you going out of your way to satisfy the needs of people that in the end they're just not gonna give a shit about you?
That's the truth. I get where you're coming from, but I mean, if you think about, obviously you're saying it because you're basing it off your own life experiences, and obviously me basing it off my own. I completely get where she's coming from, 100%. Because in that situation you feel like you're nothing. You have to look for other people's acceptance because you don't have enough self-confidence in yourself to sort of to love yourself. I think that's an issue that might be spreading from that. She's looking for acceptance from others because she can't accept herself. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but I still felt uneasy, mostly because when I became older, I realized that trying to gain acceptance from other people was just like stupid.
Yeah, but you have to understand that she's like what, a 15-year-old girl. She's
yeah.
My thing with Koga is that I, like, you know, I'm not going to go in. She definitely wasn't my least favorite character, but for me, she was just the most frustrating character because of her dependency on trying to fit in and all the cliques and everything. But I think that's why also at the end of her arc, the payoff was kind of nice, kind of seeing her grow and mature. And then she went off with her other friends that, you know, finally kind of, you know, were looking after her this whole time, you know, from a distance and things like that, and where she didn't really care about being into that whole social circle anymore.
Yeah, but she goes back into that. You see her later on in the anime still texting and still like doing all that shit.
Oh, she's still texting with her friends, but it's not her dependency or anything like that. And like I said, she's spending more time with her other friends that she was blowing off before.
Any other characters that you guys want to talk about? Like, I really don't want to talk about Futaba because I'm disappointed in her.
We do have to speak about Futaba, so I'm sorry, Bish. We'll carry on.
Futaba was my favorite character.
She got less interesting as the anime went on, honest to God.
I will agree with that, but only because of the fact that, so let's just come out of the gate and say it. So she is the one who's supposed to rationalize everything with science and whatnot, thinks that Azusagawa is stupid when it comes to, oh, this is just that rumored adolescence syndrome, until it happened to her. So this is when Futaba does a total 180. But I suppose for the physics fan in the audience, they may appreciate fully, like, where does she come from?
But here's the whole thing is that I've been wondering about, you know, going along with things not being resolved, is that was there potential, you know, of it being the two Futabas the whole time?
There could be, But
So
in
it's like,
the
so
end,
which Futaba were we seeing when, until we knew about the whole duality thing?
the thing about in her arc that I thought that the shy Futaba was actually trying to kill herself. So remember that scene when she went to school and didn't let anybody know that she was going to there, in which Sakuta ended up going to her house and she went all, if it was me, where would I be? And then Sakuta under the rain started biking to school, and then this is where Sakuta falls down, which kind of defames and is when kind of gets the message through that if anything he's depressed.
I think that's a theme in the show, like teenagers that are depressed, and it's just showing, as you mentioned, well, like all of the metaphors in this show. Like obviously it's not us watching it, we understand it's metaphorical, but I mean within the show it's like reality to them. So it's showing all the different types of depression, all the sort of situations that these high schoolers might be going through that everyday people won't necessarily understand. Like they won't understand their demons, they won't understand what's going on. Even if it doesn't seem like a big deal to them, it might be killing them on the inside. It might be like self-inflicting wounds, that sort of stuff.
Well, and I kind of think that goes along with the whole Futaba thing itself, and why, she was kind of segregating herself away and not wanting people to try and help her, because she's kind of, been that character that, Sakuta and other people went to, all the time to ask questions and talk to, that she was kind of their rock, and she didn't want to turn around and have to, do it for other people. I don't think necessarily it was a thing where she might have been suicidal or anything like that, but school is just where she felt the most comfortable, because when she was outside of school, she didn't go home. She let the other Futaba do that thing. She kept to herself and everything, but when she was at school, she acted like her normal self, basically.
True, but I mean, I kind of agree with Tyson, but not necessarily because of Futaba. I just think because it is a theme within this anime, like the amount of times that, they're driven to that point.
Well,
do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah, but in those regards too, Futaba is actually kind of similar to Mai in a way, where she even hints at how she developed before other girls her age, and that's kind of why she kept, to the science and the lab coat. She didn't want people only approaching her and talking to her for her body and things like that.
Yeah, there's the irony of it all, in which she had like a lewd account. Yeah, it's the lewd account that started it all, in which there was at least a part of her that wanted to be a tease to other boys, hence the dual personality.
She 100% wants attention, but at the same time, she didn't want it just for her looks, and that's what I think, actually caused that whole split, is that, she has this boy that she likes, but she knows she can't have, kind of a thing. And then, that leads to her own depression, and she starts, second guessing herself and all that stuff, because she's never actually been self-confident in anything about herself other than her smarts or anything, and then that's what goes on to bring about the sexy side, the one that starts doing the sexy pictures online.
You bring
and all that
self-confidence up, and that's another theme that I see within this anime. There's not one character that I feel that is actually properly self-confident. Like, it's always their struggle with them gaining confidence. Even if you look at my sister, for example, she was always in the shadow of her sister, right?
I think that's just a general, good overall look at just being a show about teenagers in general.
I think that's where it excels, to be honest with you. I think it's a good insight in that sense, if you really think deeply into it. Is there any other characters that are relevant?
Well, I just want to say that, like I said, Futaba was my favorite character on the show, but that's because of the fact she was actually the one that I related to, the most. Not that I was a science geek, but of course, I was a geek in school. Granted, I did play some sports. I was, a theater geek as well. D&D, video games, all
Dude,
that type of stuff.
I thought you were like this jock that would play like football and like...
No.
I assumed that you were,
all.
but okay, cool. You ruined my perception of you.
I had friends that were in all the circles, kind of like Futaba, how she has multiple friends that are in the, the different circles within the school, but I was never a part of any of those cliques or groups myself. And and I was bullied a lot in school, especially in junior high school and early high school and things like that. And I did some pretty stupid and crazy things for attention, and would tell lies and things like that, that I think back onto these days. I'm like, man, I was stupid at times. You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of relate to her, because it took her split side to just start doing whatever she could to get attention, whether it was positive or negative. She just wanted it.
I don't think that there's any other characters, unless there's some leftover thoughts about Kaede that we didn't discuss.
There's one thing that last thing I wanted to mention about Kaede, and Will was talking about how Futaba was sort of, he related to Futaba as a character. Now that I think about it, I relate to Kaede a lot, in the sense that, obviously she was bullied, I was bullied as well. Like, even this whole podcast started because of that. And I sort of had this mental block as well, because she sort of severed the ties with that. That's why she forgot all of her memories and things like that. And I tried to do that, and I tried to build up on something, and I tried to, create something new, a new Bish. Before I did this podcast, I was never like this. I kind of relate to that, because she is this new person, and I am also all new Bish. You know what I mean?
Even though she was a minor character, I'll say that my least favorite character on the show was Saki.
Who's Saki?
She was Yuma's girlfriend.
Oh, she's a bitch.
Oh, Kunimi.
She's a bitch.
Yeah.
She's a
my
fucking
God,
bitch to
yes.
be a bitch.
Like how you're talking earlier about Koga being worried about popularity and how people perceive her and things like that. Saki was the worst. She was worried about her own social standing because of her boyfriend's association with his best friend, who was kind of an outcast.
And she can fuck off. Like, if that was me,
exactly.
No, if that was me, I'd be like, fuck you, bitch. Like, fuck you.
That's one of the things that annoyed me the most in the show, is how he was still with her even through all that.
Well, I guess he's a teenage boy. At the end of the day, he's like.
At the end of the day, they're all dumb teenagers.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they're all dumb teenagers. He just wants to have a girlfriend. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
oh, Will Sensei, I want a girlfriend.
That's what it is. Will Sensei, I want a girlfriend. That's exactly it.
No, but consider this. Kunimi is a jock. He plays on the basketball team. I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't have a problem finding a girlfriend.
True.
So
I don't remember when it was, but I think there was a point in the show, if I recall correctly, where like it's briefly mentioned, I think by Sakuta maybe, or maybe it was Futaba, when they're at the whole fireworks thing, about how he does actually care for Saki. Though they never developed their relationship, but there's something there to kind of like put that out there. And then going back to Futaba for a second, how it kind of still closed up her arc, and she was okay with it, just being his friend.
Part of me wants to know like how they met. Like, do you know what I mean? Like what made him care for her so much? That's like, yeah, this is gonna be my girlfriend. Like, to me, this
and like he's ride or die for her.
Man, he seems like a fucking dunce. Like, if that was me and like a girl that I knew like was a dick like that, I'd be like, bitch, like what?
All I know is that even though she's a bit of a bitch, she must be doing something right. I just pray at the end of the day she treats him well. If she's so concerned about him and his popularity.
Maybe she does, but I mean at the same time, the fact that she cares about popularity makes me think that she's only with him because of popularity, because he's a jock. Like, I think that might be like a selfish reason. I don't think she truly cares for him. At least not like Futaba does.
But he cares for her for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. Dumb teenagers.
I think we're dedicating way too much time to Saki. I'll just agree with the opinion of everybody that she's despicable and...
Saki who?
Yeah, Saki who. But yeah, irrelevant. Let's move on. And I'm sorry. Before we discuss Saki, I did ask if we had any leftover thoughts about Kaede before we moved on.
Does Kaede wash her clothes every day, or does she stink of shit? I'm starting to think that she stinks.
No, I mean their washing machine was in the apartment, and it's not like how my apartment is where it's outside. Okay. So it's
because
right
she wears
by
the same
shower.
Panda shit every day, and I'm like, yeah. Like, does she have multiple of them?
I have a feeling that But she was kind of like the home caretaker too while Sakuta was gone, so I have a feeling she probably watched it.
I
she had
feel
multiples.
that every time that Bish tries to bring up something awkward about Kaede and her being a hikikomori, I have to think about the girl from Eromanga Sensei. And
Yes.
I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that. Sagiri. Her name is Sagiri.
What, the squid girl? Yeah, the one that has like the hair like a Splatoon character.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Yeah, I guess you could call it that, but that's Sagiri's
I actually
the
had
main
to look
girl.
up. I'm looking a picture of Sagiri right now. I suppose you can make that argument. She does have, she does have ponytails, in which it could be interpreted as her being.
Wait. Who are we talking about? Am I getting confused between Eromanga Sensei and A Sister's All You Need? I think I'm getting confused between the two. Let me just check.
No, you're definitely getting confused. So I'm gonna post in. So for the audience, I'm showing
they're both
a
trash,
picture.
so I can see where I'm going wrong.
I won't disagree with
And
that.
they both
but
have silver hair. Tyson, the trash, is insane. Okay, I was getting confused between her and the character from A Sister's All You Need. I'm not sure if you've seen that. Kevin would kill me if I mentioned this anime. A Sister's All You Need. Yeah, no, I'm getting confused between her and A Sister's All You Need. Okay, cool.
yeah, he'll probably kill you anyway because this is probably gonna make the show itself.
It is. It's gonna make the show, and I'm gonna be like, you know what? That's gonna be the next kunai suggestion. I'm gonna be like, you know what, Kevin, Sister's All You Need. That's what we're gonna watch, and we're gonna enjoy it. And then he'll resign.
What, Eromanga Sensei or Sisters All You Need?
Sisters All You Need. Because I was saying to Tyson, I got confused between the main character from Eromanga and Sisters All You Need. Before we get on that, I really want to wrap it up with like OP, like music in the show.
Okay.
Because I know you guys might have not mentioned it, but for me, the music in this show is brilliant. All right. So it
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the few anime openings and endings that I never skip. And that says a lot about it.
No, I would say not even just that, but even little musical cues throughout the show. Like one thing, like
point out, like even within the BGM, the background music, there are times where there's no music at all, and that speaks volumes about what's going on within the show. It plays it well, like to the drama that's going on, and I do like appreciate that. Like for me, it kind of creates suspense. It indicates to the viewer that there is important plot elements, etc. One thing that I do want to say, and I really want to talk about the opening and the ending, it kind of like I sing along to the OP. I don't even know the words, but I'm pretty hyped and I sing along to it. And I think what does it justice is the fact that it works well with the visuals. Like, you know how they do those jump cuts, etc. And the bit where Mai sort of does finger guns, I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I really enjoy that.
it is. It's a really good.
It's well done, man.
OP, and there's lots of things to sit and watch. It's not just your traditional OP. I was going to say it's not your traditional OP where it's just a character running. Now it starts with that, but then it develops into so much more.
But even then, even the ending is someone running as well. Like it's like. But what I like about the ending, not necessarily the animation that's in the background, it's more the music. It reminds me of this sort of French jazz, or like I think they call it Japanese fusion jazz. I think, where it's like I feel like I'm in France, I'm in Paris, at the top of the Eiffel Tower, having a croissant, and just like listening to some smooth jazz. Like, it feels
like it's a really popular song here too. Like since I have a long drive, to school and everything, when I'm driving, I just put my I hook my phone up to my car stereo and I put on Spotify and just put on like a random list of like anime music or anime radio that's streaming, and that song comes on a lot.
It's so good, man. I'm recently getting into like sort of jazz and stuff, and it's like it's pretty
I will
decent.
say though, I prefer the music in the ED.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was talking about the ED.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the OP.
No, dude. The OP is like pop music and shit.
No, the OP song is the one that comes on the radio all the time here, but I love the ending music.
Oh,
like,
that's what I was saying.
adore
I
the
just
ending.
feel like I'm in France. Like, it just feels so like bougie. Like it feels like
yeah, I
sexual.
definitely see that now. I was like, where is he getting this from the OP?
Where's
But with
this
the
from
ending,
OP?
yeah,
No,
I
the
get that.
ending. Like I said, I feel like I'm in France having a croissant, and like the French breeze in the air. Like it feels like France. Like it just feels great, and
Oh no,
it
yeah.
evokes good memories.
I could totally like just take a nap listening to the ED on repeat. Oh well, hey, I just wanted to say one other thing though about like when I was talking about the music throughout the show, is that this might not be the best correlation or example, but there are little musical cues too when things kind of got a little bit on that. I don't want to use the word creepy. I can't think of another good word for it though. But like I don't know if you remember in the Back to the Future movies, the little Back to the Future jingle, whenever things would kind of get a little bit mysterious. That's a good word. There you go. Mysterious. That's the word. They had kind of little musical cues like that in this show as well.
It reminds me of the way that K-dramas and even J-dramas do it as well. But they do that just to grab the viewer's attention, right? To just point out to them
It's a mood setter.
Yeah, of course. Tyson, you were mentioning about the final thoughts about the show, etc. Can I start on that if possible?
Sure.
For me, like, I wouldn't suggest this show to anyone. Why? Because it's just too confusing, right? I did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy it, and I do want to see more of it. Like, if there was a season 2 that explains more of what's going on, I would watch it. But I feel that the ending is very self-contained. Do you see what I mean? Like, the show is very self-contained in itself. Like, there doesn't need to be a second season. But if there was, I would definitely watch it just to understand what was actually going on.
You literally use my exact words that I have written down here, is that it's self-contained, and I would say I wouldn't really want a season 2, but maybe some like OVAs or like the movie, etc.
Like I said, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to watch. Like, to me, this show seems like one that you'd watch on a simulcast and just forget about it like 5 years later. Like, there's a guy that I used to know named Eric. He's good friends with Daniil. He's also good friends with me. And he would watch all the anime in every season. Like, I don't know if this guy has a job or anything. And literally, he just watch all the anime. And then you go up to him and talk to him about anime. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember it was from that season, blah, blah, blah. And he just wouldn't even remember the anime at all. Like, he wouldn't remember the name or the plot point. He would just be like, oh, it was that anime. Do you see what I mean? Like, this show seems like very forgettable. It doesn't seem like something that would stand out.
And it's so weird hearing you say this right now. Like, I just made a post earlier today about how there's such a huge difference between like anime fans here in Japan that there are in the West and everything. Like you're saying, it's forgettable and things like that. But Bunny Senpai is still hugely popular here in Japan. They're constantly coming out with new merchandise for it and things like that. The Blu-ray and DVD sales were really good. Books are selling. It's really popular here.
I don't see what's the appeal in Japan, but I guess it must be very popular. I don't know if it's necessarily even a fan service thing at this point, because to me it doesn't seem like it.
There's very little fan service in the show.
Yeah. So I don't see what the appeal is there, but for me it just seems like something I would forget about. Nothing noteworthy.
If anything, I do have some thoughts in regards to the forgetfulness. Is that a word of the show? And I think it's more so the way that we here in the West are conditioned to consume media. So I suppose that in a way, the rise of streaming services like Crunchyroll and just having to pick up everything seasonally didn't help much for the consumption of media, but
I don't necessarily think that. Like, I mean, at the same time, I get where you're coming from, because we're getting so much media pushed to us at the moment. Like, it was never like that. But I mean, even then, there's shows that do stand out. Like, for me, Toradora is one of them. Haganai is one of them. Like, there are shows that you always constantly go back to. Like, even Fruits Basket, right? They're shows that are classics. This show isn't, to me.
I think it would have stood out on a season with not that many high-profile shows, for sure. So? Yes.
As someone who watched it while it was airing, it was definitely one of the most talked about shows while it was going on, at least in the circles that I go in. And like I said, it's really crazy popular here. Like, even in like the monthly like magazines that come out, here, like Megumi and New Type and things like that. There's like, even now still posters coming out in those books, especially of Mai and some of the other characters from the show.
I'm going over shows that release on the fall, and at a quick glance, I'm seeing that there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shows that would have been highly talked about during the season, and that's not counting. So
Goblin Slayer.
Oh yeah, Goblin Slayer.
The Sword Art Online.
Let me see. Oh, The Return of Sword Art Online, of course.
Yeah. Gridman. Gridman kind of came out of nowhere and blew up.
Gridman. It kind of came out of nowhere, but I mean, I suppose mecha fans are starved for new content, so that would have been talked about as well. And again, this is just strictly on what the conversation would be around. It doesn't matter, at least for the purpose of the discussion, whether we like it or not. So, Goblin Slayer, Sword Art Online. I did saw some buzz around Zombieland Saga. Of course.
No, that's like almost every volume of Zombieland Saga for the Blu-rays and DVDs has topped the charts.
The Return of JoJo, apparently, from what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, then you've got Slime Sensei.
I see that Fairy Tail was also there during this season, but this wouldn't cause that much of a buzz. But at least not at this moment in time.
Not at the same level now.
Yeah, of course.
But you're basically saying that it didn't help that there was a lot of high-profile shows within that season of anime.
Of course, and I had to go back to Sword Art Online. How do you dare debut something alongside Sword Art Online and hope to not get drowned?
But I mean, the people that watch these shows are different, no? I would imagine.
No, but isn't precisely the conversation around if this show premiered in a season where there weren't so many high profile shows, it would have gotten a bit more attention and it would have stood out more.
I definitely think so.
So you think maybe the winter season, early winter, or
let me take a look at winter,
because to be honest with you, there was other shows in the winter season, like I forgot what anime it was, Domestic Girlfriend. That was hype as fuck, and then I dropped it after like episode 3.
Are you talking about winter this past winter or winter 2018?
This past winter.
So in this winter, Domestic Girlfriend, The Return of Mob Psycho, The Promised Neverland, at
Shield
least
Hero, Promised Neverland, which came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I didn't watch I didn't even watch anything that season. I'm not gonna lie to you. I watched Domestic Girlfriend. I was like, fuck, I'm not watching this. And I kind of get confused between this anime and Domestic. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, looking through everything, it could have done better if it released in the winter. At least that's how I feel, because based on what I'm seeing so far, only 3 high-profile shows. The rest.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list too, and there's nowhere near as many like shows that were previously high-profile or ended up being high-profile by comparison to fall of 2018. Yeah.
The fall is always where the hype anime comes in, like My Hero Academia. Like they all release in the fall, right? For the most part, a lot of these.
Usually, it's either summer or fall, but that's because fall is kids are back to school, so they're gonna be home. They're not gonna be going out as much, things like that.
Keep in mind that My Hero Academia originally it was a spring show. It was recently moved into the fall.
Yeah, that's because it got fucking hype as fuck, man.
Anyway, point being, like releasing alongside so many high-profile shows that definitely had the conversation going on Twitter and anime circles. Certainly, it didn't do any favors to Bunny Girl Senpai, and perhaps taking Bishop's suggestion, had it released in the winter, then it would have had a bit more of a chance. But
I definitely think so.
But yeah, we're just.
But like I said, just my experiences here in Japan, the fandom here still, carries the show on. It's still really popular here. It might have been, a slow build up, but it's still going for sure.
All right. With this unexpected conversation, I believe we are ready to wrap up. Any final thoughts that I may have missed before we start wrapping up the show?
Just to slightly oppose Bish here a little bit, I would say I would recommend this show, but I would recommend it just to specific people I know, not just as a general anime, but like how I recommended it to Bish, people I think that would be into.
Why did you recommend it to me? That's what I want to know.
Just because I know that you're into romance a bit, and it has a bit of that element. Plus, I really enjoyed the dialogue. Now, I do have some gripes, like I said earlier in the episode, where some of the dialogue feels forced, but I still really enjoyed it. I didn't really have any parts of the show where I was like, oh my god, I wish they would just get this over with, kind of a thing. But like I said, when my initial viewing of it was also when it was airing week to week, so that kind of gave me a different impression there. I can kind of see that now, though, thinking about it after binging it again. I actually rated the show pretty high. I kind of still stick by my rating because of the simple fact. So I mostly use Anime Planet, and I have it rated at a 4.5 out of 5. But that's just because there's so many. It's a double-edged sword. There's so much stuff that went unanswered that it really sucked me in, and I kept asking, well, what's going on here? What's going on here? And I wanted to see more. I want to see more of these loops get closed. But that is also a detriment to the show as well.
So in regards to this, I'm not gonna recommend it for any general anime fan. I certainly think that there are shows out there that have done it better elsewhere, including the aforementioned Monogatari. I think that it had done the supernatural themes better. The whole dialogue is done better, but I suppose that if you are looking for something to watch and you like and you like dialogue and that kind of stuff, and like a high school setting, by all means watch the show. But it's not something that I'll go out of my way to recommend, especially when
I get that too. Like I wouldn't say it's like one of my personal top anime ever, but it's I enjoyed it enough that if people are like, man, I'm looking for something different to watch, I'll be like, oh, maybe try this.
Of course, it will fall on the same category for me as well. All right. So, I suppose that will be a wrap for our discussion of Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai.
Just as a reminder for you guys, remember, if you want to support the show, please be sure you support our sponsors Crunchyroll, Loot Anime, and Japan Crate. Links are in the description, etc. And we usually have an announcement for the next episode, which I'm going to make now. Me and Kevin are going to do a special episode. We're going to do Overlord. That's the next episode of Kunai. I'm actually going to record it tomorrow, so wish me luck, guys. I'm
excited to hear about this.
Overlord. We're going to do Overlord. We're going to be doing a few other episodes within the next couple of months, where it's just going to be a two-man team. We'll try our best in that. Hopefully we also get Tyson on, and hopefully Will on as well for more episodes. So in the near future. So Overlord's going to be next, and remember, if you want to send us suggestions, make sure you do on our website. If you go to www.getlifepodcast.com/kunai, you can send us suggestions there, or you can send us suggestions at Get Life Podcast on Twitter. And if you guys want to share your Twitter pages, Tyson?
Sure, I can be found on Twitter under the handle Chemical Sora. That's CHEMICAL S as in Sam ORA. Chemical Sora. You're more than welcome to read my excellent takes on anime and some other stuff about my life, about about how I see the world. And if you're interested, I also have a YouTube page. That will be youtube.com/Chemical Sora. And I have a website as well. It's mostly a portfolio of my work, but if I may interest someone in checking that out, that is chemicalsora.me.
Tyson, I only asked for you to plug your Twitter page, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. Will?
Obviously, I am on Twitter. On Twitter, I go by @Yamstarch. That's YAMSTARCH. Yam Starch, which if you know from the Disgaea series, it's a early level, just stupid item you get in the game. Don't ask me why I chose that. Or you can also follow along to what anime I'm watching or ratings, things of that nature on Anime Planet. I use animeplanet.com/users/yamstarch. Same spelling.
And finally, my Twitter page is at @Kane_. That is... You know, I miss.
You're
doing,
still doing those
that
jokes.
Joke, man. I do that joke every episode.
You're still
Tyson.
doing those jokes.
And yeah, that's the end of this episode, guys. Say goodbye.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Oh,
that was
fun.
You know me, I always
cute,
enjoy
Will.
talking.
You're so cute. Thanking me.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, that's creepy. Don't do that.
Adios.
Tyson, any last words?
Stay sexy.
No, I wanted to say sexy, man. Fuck off. I wanted to say sexy. You stole it from me.
That's a wrap.